tension between past, present, and future. It invites and challenges us to ground ourselves in the rich prophetic tradition while we turn our eyes to the horizon so that we may perceive the Christ who is to come again. And yet, it also draws our attention to the present, where the presence of God is already at work. As John makes his appearance today in Mark's Gospel, he has been waiting for Jesus. But he has been at work also, ministering to those beset by brokenness, preaching to them, and offering them baptism as a sign and ritual of repentance and healing. John is not sitting around while he waits for the Messiah. For him, waiting and working are inseparable. John grounded himself in the prophetic tradition. He turned his face toward the future, and he flung himself into the present and into the work that was at hand. Somehow John holds the past, the present, and the future in a dramatic tension, not allowing himself to be attached, overly attached, to any one of these realms. And by holding this tension, John is able to stay open to the ways of God. And so, when Christ comes, John is able to recognize Christ. These Advent days can be disorienting in how they ask us not only to remember the past, but to anticipate the future and to attend to the present. Living in this threshold can be wildly unpredictable, stirring up questions, causing us to live with uncertainty. It compels us to develop the ability to attend to the present as we discern the future. And ultimately, if we allow it, Advent can be a place that will take us deeper and deeper into God and into the person and the church that God has created us to be and that God is inviting us to be. But this tension is hard to live in, for we are more comfortable living in one realm or the other. Sometimes we might find more happiness and joy living in the past, remembering when the pews are full, when there was an active church school, a fabulous Christmas pageant, remembering with a tinge of sadness, but remembering nonetheless. And other times, it may be easier to hope into what we want, to move through the present, ignoring the reality of what is, doing only what needs to get done, and hoping for what we want to see. A church full of people worshiping and praising God, an active and alive children and youth program. However, this morning, John is calling us to live in this tension between past, future, and present, and to do the work to prepare for the hoped-for future and rebirth of Jesus. For Mark, this waiting for the birth of Jesus is not a passive time. It is active. Mark's narrative time and time again reminds us that we must be active in our work of preparation now, if we want to truly grow as a church. If we want to see this church vibrant, energetic, alive the way you hope for, then you must do the work to prepare the way for its rebirth. And it is work. It is work that, if done well, will connect us deeper and deeper into God's heart, into God's call, and into God's hope for who we can be. And yet, it is hard work. Preparing for rebirth, for the coming of Christ, for transformation, for growth, for renewal of God's life and love is hard work. It requires us to open ourselves up, to risk vulnerability, hurt, pain, to be honest, to grapple with difficult questions, have challenging conversations, to work hard to listen to the deep heart of what is, what has been, and what may be. It requires a willingness to grieve, to let go, to celebrate, to move into, and to learn. And all this goes against the culture of our times, where we know what the answer is, where listening oftentimes means solving the problem or jumping to the conclusion of what we think the person is saying before we actually hear what they say, where death and grief are not okay, where they are feared, where they are put off through whatever means we can find to do that, where there is never enough time, where we live in desperation, deprivation, and scarcity. To prepare for a rebirth, we must walk against the culture of our day, against all that is ingrained within us. And it is risky. It is risky living counterculturally in the wilderness, for it feels like there are no paths to guide us. We must make the path as we go, with all the wonders and all the challenges that it brings. And yet Advent is a season that calls us to remember that even as we move across what seems like uncharted territory, there is a way that lies beneath the way we are going. Others have traveled here ahead of us, each in their own fashion, providing pieces that we can use. Scraps of words, images, prayers, stories, fragments that can help us find our way and enable us to smooth the path just a bit. In some sense, we are creating the road as we go. And yet, beneath this, undergirding this, is a labyrinth that is carved by those who have traveled before us, who have followed God, who called them to journey, to the shifting, to the moving, to the curving, to the spiraling, stretching, pushing, challenging, unsettling, casting forth, and giving of themselves to prepare the way for the one who came into this world, and to prepare the way for the one who will walk with us into our rebirth. Following God does not always mean traveling with certainty about where God will lead us. Rather, following God calls us to be present to the place where we are now, to the work that is set before us now. For this, here and now, is the very place where God will show up. Jan Richardson, an artist and a theologian, offers us this blessing on our journey, here and now. With every step you take, this blessing rises up to meet you. It has been waiting long ages for you. Look close, and you will see the layers of it, how it has been fashioned by those who walked this road before you, how it has been created by nothing but their determination and their dreaming, how it has taken its form from an ancient hope that drew them forward and made a way for them when no way could be seen. And look closer, and you will see this blessing is not finished. You are part of the path it is preparing. You are how this blessing means to be a voice within the wilderness and a welcoming way home.